So we will continue with the topic of where we are going, and how do we get there. Many years ago, I, by the will of God and by the hunger of my soul, I discovered and I started studying the works of Dr. David Hawkins. Luckily, I was blessed with the opportunity in 2009 to actually be in the presence of the great master and receive a blessing for my child and for our family. So we are blessed by the great Dr. Hawkins, and that's I think the highlight of my life. And we are very grateful because even before that and more after that, we have continuously studied as a family and listened to his teachings, and we absorbed a lot of wisdom, and we are shaping our lives to honor the teachings of the master. And one of the great contributions to humanity by Dr. David Hawkins was the scale of consciousness, and still is, and will continue to be. The scale of consciousness is a roadmap for all of us who are trying to evolve and find out our soul's purpose and how we can make life better for us and those around us. And what we can find out by researching and studying this map of consciousness is that each of us is on a path, and the path is pretty much the same for all of us, and it starts from the lower levels of consciousness, which are characterized by lower frequency emotions like shame and guilt and apathy, fear, lust, pride, and anger, and continuing then with positive emotions like being decent and being kind and being accepting and being reasonable, being loving, and ending in the highest realms of peace and enlightenment. And each of us is on this path, and neither of us is more special or better than the other one, because we've all been lower and we can all become better. And as the saying goes, any saint has a past and any sinner has a future. So however we feel ourselves, as sinners or as saints, if we feel like saints, well, I'm sure you have an interesting story that I would like to hear about. And if you feel like a sinner, don't despair. Hope and God is with us. So as from a sinner to another sinner, as I think most of us are, when we look at our sins, what we call as sins is actually actions and decisions made due to ignorance. Because at certain moments in our lives, we just don't know how to do any better. And out of despair, out of limitations, we choose something that affects us or affects even others in a negative way. But as also the philosophers of the past say, we only choose the best at any given time, the best that it's available for us to understand. So if we look at the scale of consciousness and how it can help you, is at least to have a clear view of where you are and what your options are. Because he says, Dr. David Hawkins says that more important than your past is what you choose for your future. What is your intention? And intention, it's a very powerful trigger, because it's like a hook. And if we can share the map of consciousness. This is a brief of the map of consciousness. It's not the whole of it, but this is a map that runs from 0 to 1,000. So for example, if you are a person that it's at the level of willingness, you are a person who is optimistic, you are hopeful, and you are willing to help others, you want to be a contributor, probably you do some volunteering work or you do charity, so you are a very nice person to be around, and people love you and you are loving. And if you would like to evolve more, then probably, let's say you look at this map and you say, reason, I don't know, maybe I don't want to be a bookworm, or maybe I don't want to be a great researcher, or not even the president of US, so what would be my options? Then you can jump over and decide that maybe love is even more interesting. And then you start to question yourself, how and what should I do or change about myself in my thinkingness, in my actions, in order to be more loving. And this sole decision to become more loving will impact your life and will help you make decisions easier, will make you counterbalance the negativity and the tendencies that might sabotage you, because now you have like a lighthouse that shows you the direction of your ship. So you know where you want to go, and when you know where you want to go, everything else is just falling into place. Not to say that it's going to be easy, because you will have to, at one point or another in time, you will have to probably let go of people in your life. You will have to probably let go of certain habits. You will might even have to move to different places. So I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy road, but it's going to be a worthy road, because when you evolve as a consciousness, what your inner experience is, that's what changes. You will feel more at peace, you will feel more contempt with yourself, and you will not so much look outside for answers, but you will discover more and more that your strength comes from within, your power comes from within, and you will rely more on yourself than you rely now on getting joy and safety and encouragement from others. So the advance of consciousness, it's let's say, um, it's more like you withdraw the projected pleasure and interest in the outside world, and you will discover more pleasure and passion for your inside world. And it will not make you a selfish person, or it will not make you an egotistic person. It will make you a more trustworthy person, a more reliable person, because you will not be subject to the changes of the weather, to the changes of the circumstances, but you will be somebody who people will rely more on. When they will look at you, you will know, they will know that you have found yourself. You will know that what you will tell them comes more from your inner truth than comes out of the whims of the passing externals. So it's very interesting that uh, paradoxically you have to, as the Bible says, when Jesus said, okay, you have to let everything and follow me. If we were to interpret this from another perspective, it will be like you have to leave the entire world and stop being attached to everything what's outside in your world, from children to husbands to houses to knowledge and to, I don't know, career or whatever you value and you appreciate in your externals, and follow me. But this me that he's speaking about, this is actually the Christ consciousness. So in order to go to heaven, you have to find and follow the me, the Christ within you. And if there's anything that I adore about the Theta Healing technique compared to many other techniques that I've explored, I have done many spiritual and non-spiritual techniques before, it's that this technique reminds you of what's most important, that everything that you do, you are actually co-creating with the divine. Then that there is nothing that you can do if you are not supported as a source of your inner power and as a source of life itself by the divine. So whether it's actually a trick for the mind, because sometimes I even think that Theta Healing is very marketable. It's like God is marketing itself, and in a way that it goes back into our lives through the cracks of the intellect. And actually it was my case. Because I wanted to improve myself, improve my mind, improve my intellect, improve my results. But in order to do that, in every exercise, I had to connect to God. It became a habit to connect to God, and now it's a way of being, and also a reality that there is nothing without God. Sometimes I forget, of course, and my tendency is sometimes to claim ownership and authorship. But then when I come to my senses, I realize that I could not even breathe without without God. So it's very interesting that by losing the world, and by this I mean by letting go of being attached to and resenting the world as you understand it, actually you gain more of the world, because you start to feel so much love inside that you have to share it, and that you realize that nothing that you have, it's not yours, it's just a custody that you have, temporary custody of knowledge. This is my case, but some have more money, for example, and then they have temporary custody for money, and some have I don't know, other things that they are custodians, like creativity or music or whatever. And then at one point, when you realize that there is an abundance where it came from, it becomes more about sharing. And it's like a travel that usually, like the travel of the hero, you know, you go out into the world and you hope to find your answers into the world, and then at one point you have start to have revelations, and then you realize that when you go home, by the time you get home, all the answers were already there, and you could have found them without even taking the travel. But well, the travel, while we are at it, the travel leads us through these layers of consciousness, and if we understand them, then it makes the struggle more acceptable. And we accept that we have to go through what we have to go through in order to become enlightened. And we see that what stops between us and being happy is just attachment. Um, I remember a few years ago when I started working with Theta Healing, one of the inner struggles that I had was really accepting that everything is a program. It was it was almost impossible for my brain to get around this. It was like I had to, my brain was looking for certainty, was looking for definite answers, was looking for what is actually the highest truth. And by now I realize that there is a highest truth, but I'm not there yet. Because sometimes we just hear about the truth, but we don't incorporate it. So each of us just imparts levels of truths according to the levels of consciousness that they are at. But each level of truth has its own benefits and its own limitations. So it's worthwhile to seek higher truths and to be willing to change our ideas in order to align ourselves to that. And that's why I find that Theta Healing, it's a wonderful technique. But if you double it with understanding the map of consciousness, you will accelerate your evolution probably a million times fold, because you will no longer just babble about it. It was one of the most frequent questions I got in the basic classes is, I don't know what beliefs I have. What should I change? By becoming familiar with the map of consciousness and reading about your level and reading about the next levels, you realize that there are so many differences between the way people actually think and process the world. And it will give you good inputs about what you can change about yourself, what beliefs you should give up in order to reach the next level of consciousness that you desire. And then but what's empowering is that you can use the same tool to change your beliefs to get from 310 to 350, that you will use from 350 to 500. So Theta Healing is the tool that can take you from one step to the other once you decide which are the steps that you want to take.